evening, everyone. My name is Leslie, and today I will be discussing how the iPad can help the visually impaired child. So before I begin, I was doing a bit of research, and I was looking at the three sources that I had chosen. I was only able to find one source that was specifically talking about the visually impaired child. The other two were kind of dealing with this special needs child, but not really with them being visually impaired. It was more of them having autism and how they can kind of find applications that will help them succeed in education and stuff like that. So I had different points that I tried finding to be exact. So first I'll kind of define the topic, so how the iPad can help the visually impaired child. So there are some children that are visually impaired, and with this one article that I have found that had to deal with the visually impaired child, she kind of mentions what application would be best for the child that is visually impaired. And the other two didn't really give me much to work with when it was talking about the child that's visually impaired, so I tried my best again to try and work with what I had and what I was able to find. So apps for the visually impaired children. So there are some apps that can help students who are visually impaired and who experience autism. So again, I found three sources. One had to deal with kind of autism and visually impaired, and the other two were just kind of special needs, didn't really target the visually impaired children. So these apps try and aim to help students who have trouble in school. Of course, this is not a permanent fix for children with these problems. This is just something that will be able to kind of further assist them into bettering their educational experience. Not all students are going to be able to, have the same experience that children without disabilities have, but it's good for these children to know that there are apps that can help them and, kind of walk them through what's going on and, teach them a little bit. Even if it's in a different way. There are not many credible sources to help the visually impaired children. That's very common, not a lot of people know that, and I think it's important that people are aware of that. The effectiveness. So something that I read about in one of the articles is that millennial children are known to be very familiar with technology than children from other generations. I find that to be very true. I mean, you go out nowadays and you basically see so many young kids with their iPads and their mom's phones. They're very familiar with the technology today. The iPad, of course, can be more beneficial to children if it's used the correct way. So again, there are a lot of apps in the App Store that can be educational. Based on one of the sources that I found, she actually gives a list to parents who have children with disabilities, and she kind of gives them names of apps in the App Store that will help this children with this disability, and I think that's very awesome that she was able to do that. Education can be learned through an iPad, and I think it's very important that children are made aware of that, and their parents. Electronic devices and their help. Students with these disorders will be known to have difficulty in basic communication skills. So with these disorders, it's autism, the visually impaired, dyslexic, and stuff like that. Those are what the sources discuss. These electronic devices are known to help students overcome specific barriers and facilitate a way to communicate. Again, there are so many apps in the App Store, and there are so many things that children with disabilities can find, or their parents can find for them, and that they can kind of, push their way and learn similarly, not exactly the same, but kind of to what children with non-disability would learn. There are some repetitive apps in the App Store, but that does not have to be a bad thing. I think it's neat that there are apps that maybe they're not the exact same, but they kind of deal with a similar thing. It might be a math app or a reading app, but it kind of involves around the same subject or the same material and stuff like that. Just shows that there are more apps for students with special needs. So again, one of the sources, she mentions that there are sources that she found where she could actually trace back to check to see if the apps that she was giving these parents were credible or not. And so I think it was very nice that she was able to make a list of apps that would help a dyslexic student, that would help a visually impaired child, that would help a student with autism. I think it's neat that she was able to do that. Parents. Parents sometimes need help in searching for these specific apps that will assist their special needs child to exceed in certain aspects. Melanie Little mentions that she does not provide medical or legal advice, but instead provides reputable sources that give excellent information on these apps for children with special needs. I think it's important that parents do their research and that they go on the internet and find what app would work best for their children with special needs. I don't think they should be discouraged that their child can't learn the same way as a child that is not disabled. I think that they should be able to, push and kind of work really hard to find apps that will be best suited for their child. This is my works cited. Again, I tried my best to find sources that would help, that would deal specifically with the visually impaired child, but it was very hard. I only found one, and the other two basically dealt with special needs children that had all different types of special needs. Like I said, it was autism, dyslexic, visually impaired. It was just a bunch of different things. So thank you for listening, and I hope you were able to learn something from this.